Oh, hello, great readers. I'm Belchan.
I'm Nimakung.
I'm Banchan.
In this class, I'll read to all of you a part of Great Expectations.
As.
Ah.
Great Expectations. Charles Dickens. Chap. 54 Sec 2. Dibe. When I was over yonder, to the side the world, I was always looking to this side, and it come flat to be there. For all I was a growing rich, everybody knowed Magwitch, and Magwitch could come, and Magwitch could go, and nobody's head would be troubled about him. They ain't so easy concerning me here. The Ubi won't be. Leastwise. If all goes well, said I. While he returned, drawing a long breath. He dipped his hand in the water over the boat's gunwale, and said, smiling with that splendour upon him which was not new to me, I suppose I think so. Dear boy, we be puzzled to be more quiet and easy-going than we are at present. But it's a-flowing so soft and pleasant through the water, perhaps, as makes me think it he was a-thinking through my smoke just then. We can see to the bottom of this river what I catches hold of. More yet we can no more hold their tide than I can hold this. And it's run through my fingers and gone. You see, holding up his dripping hand. But for your face I should think you were a little despondent, said I. Not a bit in it. Dear boy, it comes of flowing on so quiet. Tin. He put his pipe back in his mouth with an undisturbed expression of face, and sat as composed and contented as if we were already out of England, in constant terror. For when we ran ashore to get some bottles of beer into the boat, he was stepping out. I hinted that I thought he would be safest where he was, and he said, do you, dear boy, and quietly sat down again. There felt cold upon the river, but it was a bright day, and the sunshine was very cheering. The tide ran strong. I took care to lose none of it, and our steady stroke carried us on thoroughly well, by imperceptible degrees. As the tide ran out, we lost more and more of the narrow woods and hills, and dropped lower and lower between the muddy banks. But the tide was yet with us when we were off Gravesend, as our charge was wrapped in his oak. I purposely passed within a boat or two's length of the floating custom house, and sought to catch the stream, alongside of two emigrant ships. At us, and soon the tide began to slacken, and the craft lying at anchor to swing, and presently they had all swung round. The pool began to crowd upon us in a fleet, and we kept under the shore, as much out of the strength of the tide now as we could, standing carefully off from low shallows and mud banks. Our oarsmen were so fresh that a quarter of an hour's rest proved full as much as they wanted. With us, and looked about. It was like in marsh country, flat and monotonous, and with a dim horizon, while the winding river turned and turned, and the great floating buoys upon it turned and turned, and everything else seemed stranded and still. We had headed, and the last green bridge, straw-laden, with a brown sail, had followed, and some ballast lighters, shaped like a child's first rude imitation of a boat, lay low in the mud, and crutches, and slimy sticks stuck out of the mud, and slimy stones stuck out of the mud, and red landmarks and tide marks stuck out of the mud, and an old landing stage and an old roofs building slipped into the mud, and all about us was stagnation and mud. We brushed off again, and made what way we could. It was much harder work now, but Herbert had started persevered, and rode and rode and rode until the sun went down. By that time the river had lifted us a little, so that we could see above the bank. There was the red sun, and the low level of the shore, in a purple haze, fast deepening into black. And there was the solitary flat marsh, and far away there were the rising grounds. Between wood and us there seemed to be no life, save here and there in the foreground a melancholy gull. As the night was fast filling, and as the moon, being past the full, would not rise early, we held a little council, a short one, bind. So they plied their oars once more, and I looked up for anything like a house. Thus we held on, speaking little, through 4 or 5 dull miles. It was very cold, and then a collier coming by us, with her galley fire smoking and flaring, looked like a comfortable home. The night was as dark by this time as it would be until morning, and what light we had seemed to come more from the river than the sky, as there was in there depicting struck at a few reflected stars, followed as the tide made. It flapped heavily at irregular intervals against the shore, and whenever such a sound came, one or other of us was sure to start and look in that direction. Here and there, the set of the current had worn down the bank into a little creek, and we were all suspicious of such places, and eyed them nervously. Sometimes, what was that ripple? One of us would say in a low voice, or another, "Is that a boat yonder?" And afterwards we would fall into a dead silence, worked in the falls. At length we discovered a light and a roof, apart by, leaving the rest in the boat. I stepped ashore, and found the light to be in a window of a public house. It was a dirty place enough, and I dare say not unknown to smuggling adventurers. But there was a good fire in the kitchen, and there were eggs and bacon to eat, and various liquors to drink. Also, there were 2 double-bedded rooms such as they were, the landlord said. No other company was in the house than the landlord, his wife, and a grizzled male creature, the Jack of the little causeway, who was as slimy and sweary as if he had been low water marked too. With this assistant, I went down to the boat again, and we all came ashore, and brought at the oars, and rudder and boat hook, and all else, and hauled her up for the night. We made a very good meal by the kitchen fire, and then apportioned the bedrooms. Herbert and started up where to occupy one. I and our charged the other. We found the heirs carefully excluded from both, as if air were fatal to life. Thought the family possessed. But we considered ourselves well off, notwithstanding, for a more solitary place we could not have found. While we were comforting ourselves by the fire after our meal, the jackal who was sitting in a corner, and who had a bloated pair of shoes on, which he had exhibited while we were eating our eggs and bacon, with the tide, when I told him no. To be continued.